Hello and welcome back to part 3 of my jump back into CB radio. This final parcel finally arrived from the States. I was very pleased to see this arrive. It arrived within about 10 days. I ordered it off of eBay. This was part of a bundle, as I mentioned before. It comes with a much better quality, I'd have to say, antenna than the last radio that I had, and it's still not great, so we're still going with a new antenna. But as you can see, this radio is considerably more shiny than the other one, and bigger, and a lot more like what I was after, really. This was a sort of radio that I would absolutely have loved to have had back in the day when I was a kid, peering through all those car windows. And this radio is also, of course, an AM radio, being that it's an American CB. Now, this particular radio was a manufacturer's return, so it's not brand spanking new, but it's as near as damn it new. So these have been returned because the customer didn't want them for whatever reason. So, but you never really know it. There's a very faint scratch on the back of the microphone there, so the microphone's seen a tiny bit of use. But the actual radio itself, with the exception of a slight mark on the top lid, it seems pretty decent, really. I've got to really put it through its paces in the next few days, though. When we go out, when the weather finally clears up here in the UK, it's pretty terrible at the minute. I like the fact that it's got a detachable power lead. That's always nice to see, and it doesn't look like this particular lead has been used, certainly not on a or inside a vehicle at all. And this unit is a 12 volt radio only. Comes with the ubiquitous mic clip and the screw connections for the mounting bracket. As you can see there, straight out of the box, you can see this mark on the top case there, but really the bit that counts, the nice shiny bit, was all that I was really interested in. The bezel around the edge, which has got this protective film wrapped around it at the minute. I'm not sure, but I would imagine these get a little bit of attention and tuning when they go back to the manufacturer. I mean, they're not refurbished because they're not supposed to have had any use at all. But I do wish more manufacturers would put the power sockets on the back on some of the budget CBs. I know they do it to save money, but it is much nicer if you can remove the lead. So underneath that protective film, you can see there's a nice glossy surround. Now, I really am an aesthetics person. Radios have got to look right, and this definitely looks right to me for a CB. Even if it didn't work, I'd still like it to have it on the shelf, but thankfully it does work. Not that there'll be a huge amount of people on there, obviously, with it being an AM radio, but if you haven't mentioned the previous episode, you can actually use this radio on AM, because obviously we can transmit on the EU frequencies. It has, obviously, you can see mic gain, RF gain, delta tune, the SWR calibration. I've tested all this out and it does actually work fine. I've checked all this out on the bench. The only thing I haven't done is check the PA, which is, if you don't know, the ability to switch the output to a speaker and announce your messages to the outside world, something I'm not really that bothered in doing. Anyway, you can see the size difference next to the T-800. I've actually recently bought another T-800 because I want to do some FM to FM testing as well. So I've actually got 3 CBs now, having had none previously. So, but you can see the real difference in size there between the two radios. They get quite a nice manual, multi-language manual here from with this radio. Fairly self-explanatory. If you've owned CBs in the past, this isn't really anything you need to spend too much time messing about with. But I think you'll agree, compared to the cheap budget UK radios, these are in a different league. And of course, if you haven't got to import these into the UK, and you haven't got the costs involved in doing that, they're very cheap. I still don't fully understand why we get ripped off so much over here in the UK, but that's for another video. Now, this antenna here, the top section of this antenna, it was kind of flattened down. It wouldn't actually go into the hole. I didn't spend much time playing around with this because we've got the new stereo antennas for the car, so we're not really going to bother with this. Just a fridge magnet now. Anyway, I connected all this lot up to the dummy load, and I recently bought that fairly cheap power SWR meter as well, just to test out some of the these radios. How accurate that is, I don't know, but I think you'd agree when it powers up, it's rather nice looking. It's not overly garish like some of them that I have seen with LED lights all over the place. I think this is a nice balance between modern and old-fashioned looking. And it's got a nice and it feels really good quality. All the switches feel really nice. They're all, you know, you can tell when something feels nicely made. You couldn't really say that about the T-800 by comparison. This does feel like a much better made radio all in, and I really love the old school analog meter there. I mean, really this could have easily passed for a radio that was made in the 1980s that you would have seen sat proud in place in a American trucker's rig. You know, this really is one of those type of radios, and exactly the reason that I bought it, for that reason. So really pleased with it. I say the true test will be when we take it out in the field. We've just got to wait for the weather to improve before we can get out and do that. You'll see this one is pushing out roughly 3 watts. The American limit is the same as UK. There it's 4 watts. The manual for the T-800 shows how you can actually change the settings. The radio will come in standard with UK settings, but by push button selection and turning the radio on and off, as you can see there at the top there, you can select what band this transmits on. Now if you select the EU band, you only get 1 watt, which says to me that this is you know, this radio has got the old set of firmware in the chip, because we can actually transmit more than 1 watt now on AM. In other news, I ran out of binding post, so I decided it was time to make a binding post box so I could put more binding posts. I always run out of 12 volt DC when I'm in the shack, so I designed one up, printed it off, got some car fuses and some binding posts, some nice silicon cable, and made myself a power supply rail to go underneath the PSU. So anyway, if you have been, thanks ever so much for watching. Hopefully the next CB video will be a mobile test of these radios with Mick, and we'll go out and about and give them a really good thrash and see if really, you know, if AM CB is worth playing around with, and then we'll make some comparison transmissions with the FM CBs and also 2 meter and 77. So we'll have a good play around. Anyway, again, if you have been watching, thank you very much. Catch you on the next one. Bye bye.